This is 142.2, The Kingdom.
And once again, the Lombardi Trophy has a red and gold reflection. You can doubt the Chiefs. You can dislike the Chiefs. You can disrespect the Chiefs. You're gonna have to deal with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Good Wednesday evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in this week's edition of 142.2 The Kingdom, either on X, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Richard. I'm hosting today in lieu of Dom. He had some family stuff that came up, so I'll be filling in for him tonight hosting. And I've got Corey with me here as well, and we should have Trizzy coming in a little bit later. So week 2 of preseason is in the books, and it wasn't exactly everybody's best showing outside of Gardner Minshew. So just initial thoughts on that, Corey, to kind of start us off. How did you kind of take everything? Because I know Chiefs Twitter didn't exactly take it well.
See, I'm going to go with the good. It's good and bad. I'm going to start with the good. It shows the confidence the Chiefs have in the starting roster right now that they played so few starters. It looks like they're already pretty confident in what they have going into the season. They want to avoid injury. The bad is it looks like we lack pass rush still. And it's one thing that I've noticed is the lack of pass rush. The second unit, the lack of receiving options. The run game is still kind of confusing on how we're using the backs. But to me, we're putting our second and third strings up against other team starters right now. So for me, it's still kind of hard to determine what we have.
Yeah, you could kind of tell that. The Travis Kelce didn't play, Pat didn't play. The only big ones that played on the defense were George, Charles, Omenihu, and Leo, but Leo's not really Leo is only there in certain packages, so really there weren't a whole lot of starters out there. And Nick Bolt didn't play, Drew didn't play, so yeah, a lot of the main guys didn't play. So that, I mean, and weather plays a part of that. I'm sure that they planned on playing these guys. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh well, this was the plan all along, because it probably wasn't, because they did have Andy, and I know people like to say Andy does this and then does the complete opposite. I think he had a plan for getting these guys reps, and it just didn't wind up happening. The weather, I think, with the way the field is at Seattle sometimes, I think it was just a better safe than sorry, and don't play most of the guys any more than you probably should. And ultimately I'm okay with that, because I don't think he needed to necessarily be out there that much to prove anything outside of the O-line.
Based on the first 2 games, what players are you higher on now, and what players are you lower on compared to where you thought they would be better?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the players that I think did well, Jeffrey Bassa did a lot better. Once again, he had a good game. I thought Noel Williams had another pretty good game before he wound up getting hurt and going out in concussion protocol. It appears he is good to go for this week, because he wasn't part of the list of players that Andy said are definitely not going to play. So it looks like he'll be good to suit back up. And Robert Tonyan basically solidified himself as tight end 3. So I think those are 3 players in particular that I think did a pretty good job, and I think have kind of solidified what their roles are going to be on the roster. And we'll probably see more of them in traditional backup. They'll come in for a couple plays, they'll come out while the starters are, to kind of give people those reps. One of the players that didn't exactly do much to help himself, it was the person who actually just got traded about 30 or so minutes ago, and that was Sky Moore, who has just been traded to the 49ers for a late-round pick swap in 2027. So outside of that punt return, he didn't do very much for himself. And with the receiver crunch that has started to happen on this roster, there just wasn't a place for him. With Jalen Royals and Brashard Smith and Nico Remigio doing well, returning kicks, with just the receivers that have shown a lot more than he has both in camp and in preseason games, there just wasn't a place for him on this roster anymore. So I'm glad they at least were able to extract some value out of him and allow him to get to a place where he'll have a fresh start and he'll have a chance to try to make an impact somewhere else, because the 49ers receiving core has been decimated by injuries.
See, for me, I was always a little bit lower on Sky Moore. He had two things working against him. One, smaller school. Two, undersized. If you go with a smaller school receiver, I want somebody that at least has the receiver traits, like the height, the speed, the quickness. He didn't really have the height or the size, and already playing at a smaller school. He wasn't playing the same competition that he would be at an SEC or a division like that. Now, some of the people that I'm higher on, what he didn't mention is Hicks. Hicks has looked like he's starting to get his feet underneath him and starting to take over kind of that Tyrann Mathieu role, just kind of all over the place at safety. Bassa kind of reminds me of year one Drew Tranquil. He was all over the place, but had some problems overrunning plays. But you can definitely see his quickness flash compared to our other linebackers. I'm kind of up and down on Pacheco. He looks like he still has some of the same vision problems, but he looked like he does have his burst back, especially in the passing game. I'd say receivers, Royals and Thornton have both stood out. Royals can win in tight window spaces, kind of like Rasheed can. Thornton kind of is playing that Justin Watson role, kind of that stretching the field and boundary to boundary. So I think with both of those players developing, it kind of just pushed Sky Moore out of a roster spot, especially with his lack of special team abilities. We've already got Nico on special teams. Probably Brashard Smith is going to play some special teams. I haven't seen a whole lot of Kareem Hunt. I thought after bringing him back the way he played last year, I thought we'd see a little bit more of him than we did. I know he probably wanted to get Elijah Mitchell some touches, and Brashard Smith kind of seeing the back end of the running back room to see who that last running back spot's going to be. But I still thought we'd see a little bit more of Kareem, especially with him coming back into camp, looking like he was in better shape. He thinned down a little bit. D-line, besides Chris Jones, Gillette has had some flashes, but still not getting a whole lot of pressure. I know that's one thing that we were hoping for this year is we get a little bit more pressure off that D-line. I just haven't seen it this preseason. Hopefully when we get the starting rotation in, first regular season game, we see a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, I think with the D-line, it really is kind of a shame we haven't seen much from them. You would like to see more consistent pressure, but a lot of these guys haven't really worked a whole lot with each other so far, and I don't think the field, especially last week, did them much favors. We'll see how that looks in Arizona. I would like to see it look a little bit more cohesive in Arizona on Friday, but we will see on that front. It's a shame that Omar Norman-Lott hasn't been healthy all preseason, because I think he really needed to – I think he would have really benefited from the increased snaps and the ability to work alongside Chris Jones a little bit more frequently than he has. But unfortunately, that ankle, he retweaked it, and he is not going to play Friday. Jalen Royals is not going to play Friday. Apparently did something to his knee also in Seattle. So unfortunately, there's going to be a few guys who aren't going to play. Nazi will not play. So Mike Edwards will not play. Those are two more guys who got hurt in Seattle. So unfortunately, the injury bug hit a few rooms in Seattle. So I think the depth is going to look a little iffy for the last preseason game, but that just gives opportunities for more guys to kind of showcase their stuff. It looks like Christian Fulton will at least suit up. Not sure how much he'll play, but there's a chance we could see him on the field finally. Looks like Hollywood Brown is going to play on Friday as well, so we'll see him getting a few snaps, which should be good. Hopefully he does not get hurt this time. After what happened last season. So, and hopefully and I do not believe Kareem Hunt was listed on the people who are not going to play, who definitely are not going to play Friday. So hopefully we see a little bit more of him. I feel like last week was more of a precaution than anything. Again, I don't think they need to see much from him. I think they just need to make sure that he stays healthy. Same with Pacheco. He had a few plays and he was out just like everybody else. So I think it's just a matter of keeping them healthy. There's one guy I wish I would see more of behind the starters, at least for a few plays. It's Elijah Mitchell. We really haven't, from all accounts that I've seen during training camp, he's been the best back in pass protection. He's been primarily used he's been great out of the backfield. And it seems like in the limited carries he's gotten, he looks like he's doing things that you want to see from a guy who looks like he's going to be a third down back and who has been in this league long enough. But he just hasn't gotten any run behind the starters. It's all been behind the 2s and the 3s. And I'm not entirely sure how great of an evaluation you're getting out of him because he's not getting good blocking behind him. I mean, he was the back who got hit in the backfield immediately on the safety in Seattle. I'm like, what are you, and my question, I guess, is what are you evaluating from him? What are you getting out of these reps, or what are you seeing from him running consistently behind the number 2 and number 3 line all season so far?
Now, how do you feel about I know you kind of touched on running backs, but how do you feel about the O-line so far? I know Simmons has looked the part at left tackle in his limited reps, but honestly, I think Moore may have looked a little bit better than Juwan Taylor. I know Juwan Taylor had the surgery, but even through camp, I think Moore has looked more of a solid right tackle than Taylor has. I know it may take him time to get back. He's got chemistry with Trey Smith next to him. But how do you feel the state of the O-line is this year compared to last year?
I think it's better overall than last year. Now there's still some growing pains that are going to happen, and we'll get into that here in a second. I think Jalen Moore's looked pretty good. I've liked what I've seen from him at right tackle. He has pretty much done most of the right tackle snaps. They've kept Juwan Taylor pretty much on ice this preseason, which doesn't surprise me considering. I don't have any problems I don't think we're going to have too many problems if he has to play. Kingsley looks great in the run game, but still doesn't look great in the pass game. And some of that I think is technical. Some of that I think he just isn't comfortable yet at a new position. My fear on that one though is how much leash are they going to give him, knowing that you have Jalen Moore if you need him. How much leash do you think you'll give him?
He almost looks like he's more comfortable when he doesn't have to think. In the run game, you just move forward and push forward, and there's not a whole lot of mental game in it. When you're in pass protection, you have to wait and think about your first step, think about which way the guy's going to go when you're dropping back. It looks like he's just more comfortable when he doesn't have to think about it. He just plays. And it looks like he kind of overthinks things, especially when he has to play, or when they have to when they get switches and they get crossing defenders and they have to switch.
Mm-hmm.
He looks very uncomfortable when he has to make a decision about who to take, like whether or not he's going to take the crosser, or if he's going to go to his right or go to his left. He just doesn't look very comfortable when he has to stay in place or take a step back, and then like he's almost guessing at this point.
Yeah, it definitely has not. It definitely has not looked cohesive yet. That's the word I would use. It doesn't look fluid yet, and it's hard for me because it's only been 22 snaps against people who aren't the same guys you've been going up against for months now in training camp, off-season work, and all this stuff. So it's hard for me to say definitively yes, he's going to work out, or no, he's definitely not going to work out, because I just don't have enough raw data. I mean, 22 snaps is not going to tell me enough, personally, especially when most of those snaps have been run snaps. They haven't even been pass set snaps. So
yeah. I
think I need to see them. I need to see the offensive line play, and I hope Andy does this, because I think it's worth the evaluation. It's worth seeing what it's going to look like. I hope they play the whole half versus the Bears. I hope they play at least the whole first half, at least the offensive line against the Bears.
You know, it makes me kind of wish when we moved Tooney to left tackle last year that we would have plugged Kingsley in at left guard, and by this year he would have half a season of reps under his belt. I mean, I think we kind of knew Tooney was going to be gone after this year. We were going to be looking for that left guard replacement, and you know, if they thought that he was probably the option going forward, they put him on ice all last season, and I think maybe that may have tweaked his confidence a little bit. I mean, it looked like all through camp he was going to be the starting left tackle. He went up against, who was it, Hendrickson? And
Yeah.
Hendrickson had a heyday, but Hendrickson had a heyday with everybody last season.
Mm-hmm.
And they pulled him and pretty much put him on ice all season. You know, and I kind of said the same thing with Sky Moore. After he ran a couple missed routes and had a drop, they kind of put him on ice as receiver, and then they threw him back at punt returns, which he'd never done. And I felt like they kind of broke his confidence. I feel like maybe they may have done the same thing with Kingsley last season, is they may have broke his confidence a little bit, and he just needs to work on getting it back. And I mean, it kind of shows in his gameplay too. He's not confident in pass protection anymore. If you watch his college tape, that was actually one of his strong points, was dropping back and anchoring, and it just looks like he's not playing with any confidence at this point.
Yeah, I think the new position doesn't help, and he just hasn't gotten a lot of chances to work in a non-practice setting with the guys who are next to him, and it's just the reality. He's only gotten 22 snaps, and I think the hope and the plan was that these guys were going to get more work in the preseason, but it just hasn't worked out that way. So I'm hopeful that the weather cooperates, and in Arrowhead these guys can play at least the whole first half, because I want to have enough data to at least evaluate how they're going to look against an entire group of starters who are probably going to be playing most of the first half themselves, because Ben Johnson has said that the starters are going to play both offense and defense. So yeah, I think this will be finally our first real look at what is this going to look like, and how high should the concern level be, because I don't think you have enough yet right now to say one way or the other.
And like you said, it's going to be kind of interesting to watch to see how short his leash is, especially with Jalen Moore, how good he's looked. And if Juwan Taylor comes back, takes over the right tackle spot, you've already got Jalen Moore on a pretty expensive contract. He's used to playing on the left side, playing left tackle, backing up Trent Williams. So it's going to be interesting to see how short his leash is. If he has 1 or 2 games where he has a bunch of issues, once Taylor's back, do we try swinging Jalen Moore over to that left guard spot and seeing how he holds up?
I would rather they made that decision before the season starts, and whoever that they choose to go with at left guard, they stick with it this time. I don't need them flip-flopping again like they did last season, because it didn't help anybody. And Patrick wasn't comfortable. Nobody on the offensive line looked comfortable. Everybody was wondering, okay, who's going to be the guy next to me on any given play at one point in the season? So which is why I'm going to keep stressing this, because I think I do think that this is important, at least for continuity's sake. I need Andy to please let them play at least the whole first half. I need you to choose one of them, place them there, and say, this is who's going to play for the entire first half. Let's see what it looks like against guys going up against consistently with the same person next to them, going against the same people, play in, play out, and just go. Get yourself in a good evaluation. I hope they do that with the running backs and the wide receivers too, because we need to see some of these other guys that we really haven't seen much of this preseason so far. Jason Brownlee, we haven't seen much of him all preseason. Tyquan Thornton, it looks like, based on how his snaps have gone, it looks like he's made this roster, but I want to see a little bit more from him going up against definite day one starters on an NFL team over a consistent period of time. I want to see these guys return kicks against the starting special teams units. There's a lot of things I need to see from this game, so that way we can kind of have a good idea about who's not going to be on, who is and who isn't going to be on this roster at this point.
I think in a perfect world, I think Jalen Moore would have been battling for that left guard spot, kind of see if he can hold down better than Kingsley can in pass protection. But with Taylor having that meniscus cleanup, I think that's what he had. Was it meniscus cleanup?
Yeah, he had a knee scope for his meniscus.
So a lot of times you can have issues with that early on, especially when you first get back on the field, flaring up. So I think we wanted to make sure we had somebody with some reps at right tackle, just in case he's not 100% by the start of the season, or if he has any flare-ups. So I think that was the whole point of putting him at the right tackle position through camp, just to give Taylor more time to recover and not just throwing him back out there and overdoing it quick. And B, just in case there are any setbacks, we have somebody that has snaps at right tackle. But I think barring, if he didn't have surgery this offseason, I think we would have seen maybe some more of testing him out at left guard to see how he works. Because, I mean, theoretically, you don't want somebody making $15 million sitting on a bench. And
no, in an ideal world, you don't. Yeah. And I think a lot of what goes into that is your depth can never be too good. You know, like, you want to have those reliable options on the back end. And to his credit, he's the one who's playing right tackle here, because Jawan Taylor didn't play. He looks great on some of these reps. Like, he's either losing slow or he's getting to the second level in the run game. He's moving people off the ball. Same with Kingsley. Some of these people, he's moving people off the ball. He's opening lanes for his running backs. But on some of these other ones, he needs chip help, or he needs to have certain guys help out for him. And there's only so much of that you can do on a play-to-play basis. So,
yeah, I will say a lot of people have criticized the move of picking up Jalen Moore for that contract and then getting Simmons. But when we picked him up, we didn't know Simmons was going to be available at 31. And B, if we were set on Simmons as our target, a lot of people didn't think he would be fully ready by the start of the season. So the last thing we wanted to do was go into this coming season with the same problems we had at last year, no solid answer at left tackle, and trying to piece the line together again. So I'm perfectly fine with having him as a depth piece, but I do think in a perfect world where Taylor's healthy, I do think that Moore would have been getting more snaps at left guard, just because I think at this point in their career, he's still the better O-lineman than Kingsley.
Yeah, I think he's definitely shown a lot more in limited snaps than Kingsley has shown in limited snaps. You definitely can't deny that at this point in their careers. So I think the thing again just needs to be patience. It's not going to look pretty all the time, but I think that there's enough to work with here that you can let him fail going 100 miles per hour, because at some point he's going to learn. And if at some point he doesn't learn and doesn't get it, then you have the option to easily put somebody else in, and you should be able to feel comfortable doing some of the things that you want to do. So I think at the end of the day, I think it's still important to exercise a little bit of patience, but I understand where some people are coming from, where you're only as good as your weakest offensive lineman. And right now, I would say the weakest offensive lineman is definitely Kingsley Suamataia. So you can't always have help. You're going to have to be able to win your one-on-ones when the situation calls for it. And this is going to be another opportunity for him to show that he can do that more consistently than he has on the previous two occasions. I think it's just going to take time. I think at the end of the day, as long as they commit to one guy, I don't think it's going to be as bad as people are worried about.
Well, and not only that, we've only got Moore for probably 1 year, especially with Simmons looking the part. I don't think we pay Moore $15 million for a second season. And Kingsley's never going to learn and grow if you keep pulling him out every time he makes a mistake. And that's kind of what they did year one. And I think they just didn't want him to go too far downhill and completely lose his confidence, so they put him on ice. But at some point, you have to let him learn from his mistakes. And if he's going to be the left guard moving forward, you think for year 3 and year 4 of his career, then he's going to make mistakes. He's still young, but you got to let him learn from him. You can't pull him every time he makes a mistake.
Yeah, which is why I think Jalen Moore is going to wind up being he'll be the swing tackle. He'll be first man up for whoever goes down anywhere on the offensive line, except for center. I really think this is Jawan Taylor's last year in Kansas City. I think they're going to exercise that ability to release him or trade him with no cap ramifications after this season, and either install Jalen Moore at right tackle full-time for the 2026 season, or they're going to draft or trade for a right tackle to place there and continue to have Moore as high-quality depth through the end of his contract. I think Jalen Moore is going to be here for both of those years. It's just going to be a matter of what is his role going to be. And I think right now his role is fine as being the first man up in the event that they need anything from him. And sometimes that's a hard job in and of itself. Mitchell Schwartz had a conversation just a couple of days ago where he was up front. Like, it's hard being the 6th offensive line. It's hard being the swing tackle on a team, because you always have to be ready. You have to know everything about multiple positions, because you could have to go in at left tackle. You could have to go in at right tackle, left guard. Like, you're the first guy who's going to go into the game, but you have to know everything. You have to know the protection on all parts of the line, and you don't know if you're going to get into the game or not. So That's not an easy position to fill either, but I think they're confident that he's going to be able to do that, which is why I don't think they're going to do it. And I don't want them to do it. I want them to keep him in the role he's at and let Kingsley make mistakes on the field because they're going to happen, and let him grow and let him learn from all the snaps he's going to get and not do the same thing they did his rookie season. Yeah. That's all I need from him. I don't need him to be an all-pro. I don't need him to be a pro bowler. I just need him to be average. If you're average, everybody else can handle the rest.
Yeah, and I mean, with the left tackle spot, it's so much harder finding a solid left tackle than it is right tackle. And just having what we have on this O-line now, especially with Creed and Trey Smith both back, we've got our O-line of the future for the next 4 or 5 years. And, I mean, just look at how hard it is to find a left tackle. Look at how many years we went through different players trying to find one. Look at how many teams are trying to convert solid right tackles to left tackles. It's
what the Chargers have to do because they lost their tackle.
Finding a right tackle is much easier because you can get one later in the draft. And if you got somebody like Moore on the roster, he can hold it down for a year while he learns. Say, you don't want to invest a late first-round pick on a right tackle. You can get one into second, into third that may have some work to do, and you cut Taylor, you save a crap ton of cap space, plug Moore in at right tackle for 1 year, and develop a right tackle. So, I mean, we're sitting much better than we were last year on the O-line.
It's also why I have a little later on my roster prediction. I have Issa Pole making this team. I actually have him on the lineman depth chart going into this season because I think he's shown that though he's raw, though he still has some technical things he has to work on, he has looked very serviceable as a right tackle, and he is not, to my knowledge, I don't believe he's given up any pressures as a right tackle in any of his snaps. He has stonewalled pretty much every pass rusher that's gone up against him at right tackle. So I think they may try to keep him on the roster as much as they can to let him keep developing, because I think they may have found something with him to work on in the event that they need him for the future. So I am curious to see how much he plays and what happens with his roster spot coming up, because he's shown some very nice flashes.
Well, not only that, somebody that can play on the outside will usually take precedent over somebody that can rotate over the 3 interior spots, just because it's so much harder to play on the outside. If you've got somebody that's adequate at right tackle but can also play on the inside, they'll take precedent over somebody who can play on the inside but doesn't have the ability to play on the outside. Because, like I said, if you can play on the outside, usually you can play on all 5 spots across the O-line in a fill-in in a break glass in case scenario.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's that kind of versatility is what Andy Reid looks for when he wants his offensive line, which is why he usually keeps 10 on the roster instead of 9. He usually likes to keep as many O linemen as possible, especially those who can show they can play multiple positions, which is why Hunter Norzad is playing it more at center than he is at guard, because we really don't have a backup center for Creed should he go down. So,
and they're the lucky ones, because they're the ones that Andy Reid likes to put in an extra O lineman position to run a route.
yeah. There's also that as well. But as much as I don't like it, I get why they're giving him the center snaps. I think he's better at a guard spot personally myself, but I understand why they're doing it, because we don't really have a backup center on the roster now because we traded away Joe Thuney, who's the only one who really had the ability to do that last season. So I get, which is why I think he's also going to stay on the roster, because he also has that versatility. So looking forward to our final preseason game against the Bears. Who are 2 players, and they can be by their offense or defense, that you're really looking to see what they do? Are you looking at how do the starters look Is it a person who is fighting for a roster spot, or a person who's looking to try to get increased playing time? Who is it that you're kind of focusing in on for Friday?
I'm going to retouch on receivers. I want to see which one between Royals and Thornton kind of steps up and can take on a bigger role, especially seeing that Rice.
Well, it's gonna have to be Thornton, because Royals is confirmed not playing. But I think he still makes the roster anyway. So
Royals is going to make the roster, but we're going to need somebody to step up. I think Royals kind of fits that Rashee Rice clone ability to win in a phone booth and make tight window catches. So I think he'll take on a bigger role once Rice is suspended. Thornton, we've kind of lacked that. Or we need that Justin Watson type of role. Somebody that can stretch the field and open things up underneath again for Kelsey and for Rice on those short targets and pull the linebackers and the safeties. Thornton has shown that he could do that throughout camp, but he hasn't really had a lot of big plays in the preseason. I want to see that he can carry that over and be able to kind of be that go-to guy like he was in camp when the starters are getting a breather or somebody's out. On defense, I kind of, with the safety room starting to be depleted, I kind of want to see some more of Hicks. Year 2 of him, seeing how he develops, see if he can kind of take on that Honey Badger role to where he's kind of leading the back end of that secondary instead of just a piece back there. I said, the D-line, we might see some more of the starters in there. I want to see some pressure. I want to see somebody getting to the damn quarterback. They've had too much time in the pocket. I know it's our backups against their starters, but a lot of these backups are kind of the future along the D-line, like Gillette and what's his name, the one that's injured?
Norman Lott, yeah.
Norman Lott. I think he's going to kind of take on a bigger role than everybody expected year 1, maybe being a 3-down piece on the interior line. I think that's why they made him add some weight. Ominahu, we're going to see how he looks now that he's finally fully healthy. So I think there's still a lot of questions on that D-line. There's definitely talent there, but it's just got to translate onto the field into pressures and sacks.
Yeah, I think keeping with the safeties, I want to see now that they're finally using him, or at least allegedly, now that they're finally using him in his position. I want to see what Shamari Connor looks like now that he's actually playing at safety. They've kept his snaps limited. Everything that they've done tells me he is going to play as a safety this season for the first time in his career, looking like it's going to be full-time. If that's the case, I want to see what that looks like. I want to see how they're using him. And if they're taking him out of the slot, then that means I need to see what guys like Jalen Watson and looks like Christian Roland Wallace need to be able to step up in that slot role. I need to see what these guys look like. If we're going to put Trent McDuffie outside, we're going to keep Jalen Watson outside, I need to see what guys like Chris Roland Wallace look like in the slot and see if we can trust them when the situation calls for it. And I'm with you on the defensive line. I need to see Ashton. I hope that Ashton Gelati gets enough snaps with the regular rotation guys, because I want to see what he looks like when he's able to take advantage of the space that guys like Chris Jones command on a down by down basis. I want to see what he looks like getting inside guards, because the energy's there, but I need to see the finish.
Yeah,
so
CJ's getting older and it's starting to show a little bit. By end of games, he's out of breath, hands on his hips. But, I mean, he's getting older. You can't expect 24-year-old CJ out there on the field playing every snap. Some of these young guys have got to be able to step up so CJ can get a breather and still be effective at the end of the game. And I know that's one thing that I noticed last year is by the end of the season, we had so little depth that they were just gassed by the end of the game. And teams were able to just move the ball right down the field. Somebody has got to step up so that way there can be some rotation on that D line. Yeah, and I know that we kind of filled in Norman Lott as that kind of like a 3-down player. We got Gelati who can kind of help rotate with Karlaftis and Ominahu, but we also need a third person on the interior. I don't know whether that's one of them, like Gelati sliding inside, or Omenahu sliding inside some next to Norman Lott. But it's kind of like Kelsey. You can't expect somebody that's pushing 30, 32, 33 years old to play 100% of snaps. And CJ was asked to do a lot last season with very little around him.
Yeah. And that's actually where I think I'll start, kind of going over how I've set up my next roster prediction going into this game. Look, the D-line room is now looking a little thin. With Felix Anudike-Uzomah officially, his season's over. Janarius Robinson has a fractured foot. He's probably going on IR. His season's probably over. So, like you said, these guys like Jerry Tillery, like Charles Omenahu, Mike Dana, they need to show up. And a lot of these guys are in contract years. Mike Dana, this is last year on his contract. He either needs to show me something or he's not going to be here next year. Charles Omenahu is basically on a year-by-year basis at this point. This is his first year that he's going into a season fully healthy. I need him to show me something. Mike Pennell is basically a rundown guy at this point, which means Omar Norman Lott and Jerry Tillery, you guys are going to probably be in there on pass downs. You guys have to be able to step up. And that's it. That's the depth chart right now. And that's where I kind of had to take from some guys, because that's really it. So if we're only going to be able to carry 8 linemen on a 53-man and some of these and not cut anybody to be a game day scratch, all of these guys are going to have to show up. All of these guys are going to have to be able to make some sort of contribution. Same with the cornerback room. Shout out to Joshua Williams, who made his way back onto the 53-man roster because I left him off the last one. With Sky Moore getting traded, with FAU going down, he now slots himself back in. But 7 cornerbacks, I mean, not a whole lot of teams keep that many cornerbacks on game day. So if they're going to cut from some other places, like if Jared Wiley and one of the O linemen are a healthy scratch, we keep all 7 of these guys on the roster to start a game, all 7 of them are going to have to show me something, even if it's just on special teams. So it can't just be Trent, Jalen, and at this point I'm going to say Noel, because we haven't seen if Christian Fulton's fully healthy yet. I hope we see a decent amount of him as he's able on Friday, but I don't know how that's going to exactly look yet. So really the top 3 guys at this point are Trent, Jalen, and either Nazi or Noel. So the rest of these guys are going to have to show me something, and they're going to have to be able to produce.
Yeah, and I've said it, and it's been very unpopular in some of the Chiefs chat rooms. But for as great as Brett Beach is, these misses he's had recently in the last few years on draft picks have hurt. I mean, you've got Wadney Morris early. You've got Sky Moore early. You've got FAU in the first round. That's 2 second-round picks and a first-round pick that pretty much aren't even on the team, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and before that, what was it? Breland Speaks.
Yep. It's it hasn't been great for some of these draft picks in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, I give
be it injury, be it just unfortunate circumstances or otherwise. BJ Thompson is another one. At this point, he's basically not part of the organization anymore. I don't even know if he's officially on the 90-man or not. But if he is, that's probably not happening anymore at this point, just because of his health scare. And we really haven't heard anything on that point, so he might as well not be on the roster. And then
I've said it over and over again that I love Veach. I mean, when it comes to trades, he's amazing. When it comes to late round, mid to late round draft picks, he's amazing. When it comes to managing the cap, probably the best in the league. Up there, probably him and Howie Roseman are miles ahead of every other GM in the league. But his one downside has always been he kind of trait chases in the early rounds. And you kind of wait till – I'd rather see you wait till the middle, late rounds, the trait chase players, where players haven't put it together yet, but they have the traits. And we saw that with Breland Speaks. We saw that. There was another D lineman before that one. There was another early round pick. And then it was kind of the same thing with FAU. He had the traits, but just hadn't put it all together at K-State. And when you miss on some of those early round picks, it can really set a franchise back, because that's where you get your blue chip players from, is in those early rounds. Now he's made up for it by getting key starters in some of the late rounds. It's kind of backwards with Beach. But like I said, we've wasted so much capital over the last few years on some of these moves, like chasing the left tackle spot. It was the picks we gave up for Orlando and the money, and then the pick for Wanye, the pick for Kingsley. Just a lot of picks thrown at it that didn't work. And then first round pick on FAU, second round pick on Sky Moore. You're going to have depth issues when you have that many misses in the other rounds. Like, as much as nobody wants to criticize Veach, I mean, that's his one weakness. He's had a good amount of misses on early round picks, which leaves you thin at some of the big name positions.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately led to a lot more pressure is put on Patrick Mahomes. A lot more pressure is put on these early round receivers who may not have been ready 100% yet, but had to get thrown to the fire. Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Isaiah Pacheco having to carry a running back room that just was a lot of retreads as a late round pick. So it's not, at some point you have to hit. Hopefully that's the case with left tackle, and we will see what happens come week 1. But so far it looks like that's the case. But I think the overarching theme here is patience with a lot of these things. I know a lot of people like to overreact to preseason. And oh my gosh, the defense looked awful. What are these guys doing? What are these backups going against starters, third stringers going against primary backups? It doesn't look good. Nothing's going right. But at the end of the day, this is evaluation and this is valuable reps. They're not going to get anywhere else outside of practice. This is the way for these guys to be able to get the experience and learning points that they need from actual on-field work against other guys who are also trying to make rosters.
And let's be honest,
it doesn't feel like it's important. It doesn't feel good all the time. But preseason is about individual evaluation, not so much overall team performance and results.
And it's a good thing they're getting reps against starters, because say we get a couple injuries and they've got to fill in, they're not going to be going against second and third stringers. They're going to be going against opposing team starters. So even if it looks ugly at first, getting them some reps against starters will help them down the road.
Absolutely. And I think you'll probably see that again against the Bears, because the Bears have looked like a completely different organization these 2 weeks of preseason. I mean, even their third string guys are looking like guys who can make a roster. So I think it's important to keep a little bit of perspective. And I think at the end of the day, they're going to put the 53 on the roster that they believe are the best 53 players that can help this team get back to a Super Bowl. Now, will it always look the same? Will we maybe have to let go of a couple of people that we probably didn't want to? Possibly. There's still time to look to see who other people want to trade, want to release or cut from their rosters that may look like they could be an upgrade. There's a couple of people out there right now that are actively getting shopped. Kyle Duggar, safety for the Patriots. Brian Robinson Jr. from the Commanders. There have been a couple of other trades besides the Sky Moore trade made already for people trying to add. So the people who are here today may not be part of the picture for the 53 man in a week from now. Veach, if we know one thing about Brett Veach, he is always working the phones. He's always calling somebody to see who's available for trade if they've made it public that, hey, this is a guy we're looking at moving. He's always making calls. So I think keep going into this next preseason game, maybe Chiefs Kingdom, keep an open mind. Understand that the starters are the ones who kind of need this little ramp up a little bit more. It's gonna be more like a regular game for the most part. And the big thing is making sure everybody gets out of it healthy, because the last thing we need is to start the season with more people on IR or anything like that. So kind of last kind of little thing before, when it comes to who do you think is a good bet for practice squads or IR stashes at this point, kind of just based on what you've seen? For me, it's probably Jake Briningstool is probably going to get IR stashed. He hasn't gotten a whole lot of work. I think they like what they've seen from him in camp. I think they like what he's shown. Unfortunately, it just hasn't worked out health-wise, so I think he's probably a stash. And Elijah Badger at this point, I feel like he didn't play at all. He didn't get a single snap against Seattle. And if he doesn't get a single snap or very limited snaps against the Bears, I feel like that is going to indicate to me they want to potentially stash him on the practice squad and keep him around in case they need him for a inevitable Rashee Rice suspension or beyond. Those are the two players for me that I think are definitely going to get either stashed on IR or trying to keep hidden on the practice squad.
I think Brown Lee might be another one too.
Yeah, I can see that, because he didn't play a whole lot either versus Seattle. I think he may play some more versus the Bears, but I think it was very telling to me that he catches that touchdown and then he did not see much after that. So he definitely could be another one.
Even through camp, he's made some big catches. Like, he didn't make a lot of catches, but everything that was thrown his way, he made the play, and especially in the red zone. So I think that's a young guy that maybe you keep and you try to develop. Like, maybe he hasn't reached his full potential yet. And, yeah, I can see that tight end that you said. What's his name?
Briningstool. He's probably going to be an IR stash. I think Trey Watson also makes it to the practice squad, because I think they have their 4 tight ends at this point. I don't think any of the other tight ends are going to make it. I think they'll be practice squad or IR.
From what I heard from camp so far, he's really showed up in the red zone, especially.
Like, Watson?
No.
Briningstool?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a lot of that early on, and then he got that hamstring injury. So I think they'll want to keep him around.
I think
the offensive linemen, just the offensive and defensive end of roster guys, really haven't shown me enough that it, I think, really matters. I think they may try to see what the waiver wire holds for most of those guys. I think wide receiver and tight end are probably where we're going to keep most of our.
Here's one that's going to be kind of not expected. I haven't heard a whole lot about it yet, but I keep saying a lot of people thinking he doesn't make the roster, and I've tailgated with his mom. They're great people, but Najee Johnson, if for some reason he doesn't make it and he's the last cornerback on the roster, which I still think he makes the roster. But if he doesn't, you definitely bring him back on the practice squad because he's familiar with the system. He's been able to hop in and play. He played good up until injury. And that's the one thing that I know that he hasn't – he's coming back from an injury, so he's flashed, but he's had his down moments. I think that just may be him not being on the field a lot. And he's one, if he doesn't make it, I definitely think he's on the practice squad.
Yeah, I think he'll make the roster ultimately.
I still think he does.
I think because if for nothing else, because we're moving some guys to more defined roles. Some other guys have stepped up, yes, but you still need guys who ultimately know the system. I get it. It definitely hasn't looked pretty. It hasn't looked pretty for most of the DBs all throughout the preseason, with the exception kind of Noel Williams, really. But I know he's also had his moments.
Roland Wallace has had some good moments too.
He has, and I think that's why I have him making the roster.
Yeah.
I think he'll be the backup slot guy behind Trent. If they decide to put Trent in the slot, I think he'll be the guy who replaces him if Trent needs to come off the field or move outside.
I think we may even keep an extra cornerback on the roster with Najee coming off an injury, with Fulton. He hasn't really even seen the field since we signed him. And the only one that we've had that's played consistent snaps for us is McDuffie. And Watson's coming off an injury too. So, like I said, everybody behind McDuffie either has injury history, coming off an injury, or not very many reps on this roster. So,
yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me is who is going to. Those are the biggest positions for me looking at Friday and beyond are who steps up at cornerback behind Trent, and who's going to step up at the end of the day on the defensive line. Because for the past 2 seasons, the lack of pressure has put a lot of strain on the DB room. And with the exception of Hicks, McDuffie, and a little bit here and there of a couple of the other guys, most of the guys have kind of have felt that pressure, and it's not been pretty toward the end of the season. So I think it's really important to see who steps up from those positions specifically. I think the linebackers will still be fine, even though the depth isn't great, but I think Bassa helps with that. I think ultimately they may only keep 4 linebackers. 5 could be if they want to keep Cam Jones for special teams purposes. But I think Cochran and Christensen they didn't look good in pass coverage. They were okay in run support, but Cam Jones and Jeff Bassa looked better. So I'll be interested to see when cuts come down, what that looks like. But otherwise, I feel pretty comfortable about most of the other positions on this roster. It's just about who's going to step up and solidify the back end.
And the thing is, though, the defense behind CJ and McDuffie doesn't really have any superstars. Like, Bolton is really good. I wouldn't consider him. He gives up too much in the passing game for me to consider him an actual superstar. Now, he's elite at what he does. But behind McDuffie and CJ, there's not really any, like, cornerstone players. So you got to get these young guys that fill those positions and play situational football to step up and make plays. And I noticed that's one thing that it really showed our lack of depth in the Super Bowl when it comes to the back end, too. I know everybody was talking about the D-line and the O-line, how bad they got gashed. But the secondary and the linebackers behind Bolton, nobody really stepped up in that Super Bowl. Our cornerbacks behind McDuffie were just getting gashed nonstop. The tight ends and running backs were getting into the second level and just gashing our linebackers, not named Bolton. Even Tranquil didn't look good. So when you don't have a bunch of cornerstone players like the Eagles do on defense and the defensive line and the secondary, you've got to have players that step up and make plays. And not just in the Super Bowl. We had other games last season to where we saw the same issues.
Cornerstone players.
Yeah. I I think the big thing is
What cornerstone players do the Eagles got?
We don't have any. So we don't have any cornerstone defensive ends. Pass rush is one of the big things. CJ's getting older. I wouldn't consider Karlaftis a cornerstone D end, and his contract kind of showed that. Behind McDuffie, we don't even really have a solid cornerback two. I mean, Watson stepped up and played very solid for what he was, but he also showed his limitations. Linebackers, Bolton's already kind of limited in what he can do in the passing game. Tranquil looked a lot slower last year than he did year one. And besides that, we didn't really have any coverage linebackers. And safeties, with Honey Badger gone, we didn't really have a whole lot back there in the secondary besides Hicks starting to flash last season.
I think it'll be better with Connor moving to safety more long term than trying to make him a slot guy that he's not. And I think Leo and Bassa need to take Leo needs to take a bigger step this season, and I think they'll give him the snaps to do that. And I think Bassa will be an asset on passing downs and in certain run situations where they want him to show off his diagnostic skills and get in and be a factor in the run game. I think he needs to get a little bit. I think he'll probably need to get a little bit stronger, and it may not be perfect, but I think he will be an asset on passing downs to kind of help fix some of those issues that we had last season. I think George has the opportunity to take another step, especially because his new money hasn't kicked in yet. He's still operating on a rookie deal. So I think him showing and taking that next step will obviously be beneficial. And then it's just trying to figure out who's going to step up on the other side of the line. Mike Dana's in his last year, and now Ashton Gelati has a bigger runway with Felix going on IR. Those snaps are there for him to take. So these rookies are going to get opportunities. So I'm with you. I think the defense up front in the front seven has a lot of opportunities, because I think if we can consistently generate more pressure, that's going to help the back end. I'm not as concerned about the back end as some other people are, because and I've always said this, everything works in tandem. If the front end is not getting pressure, the back end is going to get strained, because quarterbacks are going to have all day to throw back there, and receivers know exactly where they want to be for a quarterback to throw them the football.
And not only that,
any scrambling quarterbacks are going to love it when they have 7, 8, 9 seconds to go find a guy. So,
like I said earlier, there's not really a decline in CJ's play. He's still just as dominant as he was, but he's at that age to where he's not going to have the stamina to play 100% snaps. Somebody's got to be able to take the pressure off of him and win one-on-ones on the inside. We've said this for years. Who's going to be that guy that's going to be able to capitalize on CJ getting double-teamed? And we thought it was going to be Ominahu, but he's had injury history, and it hasn't really materialized. We think Norman Locke could step in and be that 3-down guy. But regardless who it is, CJ is getting to that age to where, and we saw him just getting completely exhausted last year just from the responsibility he has. Somebody has got to step up so he can get a breather. He can get off the field so he can still be effective at the end of the game when it counts the most.
So Trizzy, who are you looking forward to now that you've come in? Who are you looking forward to seeing this Friday, now that the home crowd's got a chance to kind of see a lot of these guys in person?
I'm still big on Brashard Smith. I think the defense, I would disagree with the Eagles having cornerstone players. I think Jalen Carter's a rising star. We can say that. I think Kenyon Mitchell's coming along, but when you're in a system with guys like that, and you're just fortunate enough to go up against a banged-up offensive line, some of that can be the result of that. I wouldn't call those guys straight cornerstone players. But in my opinion, I think if just looking at the offense and what we were missing, it's not necessarily the receivers. I think, like, if we have a healthy receiver room, obviously, We still won't get the guys together for a real game. 5-1-4 still won't play together for a while. But the fact that we have those guys, I think Bashard Smith can be a guy who we can kind of highlight with his skills. I know we haven't seen much of him. Hopefully, we'll see a little bit more on Friday. Hopefully, he get his feet under him a little bit and be able to show what he can really do. I think his skill set is way above what he's been able to show. And I think his skill set in particular just fits an Andy Reid type scheme, being able for a back to kind of be elusive, kind of be an all-purpose guy. I think he has a chance to be that. A lot of people are low on Pacheco this year. If he's healthy, I think he can be a dude again. Obviously his vision has have been lackluster but I think, having that offseason to get healthy, I'm sure he's been able to work on some things. And when I went up to training camp, when I seen him a couple weeks ago, I mean, the energy was there, the burst was there. He was reading holes right, getting up the field. Hopefully that can translate to the game. But I think the running backs got to be by committee. I think they got to help each other out in order for us to be successful. I don't have any issues with the defense. I know that our secondary is going to struggle. Guys like Mike Dana and guys like Felix and those other guys, they definitely were playing roles. I wouldn't be mad if we traded for Micah Parsons. I wouldn't be mad if we traded for an edge that, like you said, can give CJ a break and our defense still not lose any juice, on those critical situations. Because, like you said, he's just not at the age to where he can play 100% of the snaps, but he's so effective when he's on the field. It's hard to take him off. So, with those two things kind of being a mixture and I ain't gonna say a blockage, but it's kind of like a sweet and sour thing. It's good, but here's the negative part of it. So I think in order for us to get the full mechanics of the team and the full things like flowing in the right direction, the running backs have to be way more a part of this than they've been. The years that we won the Super Bowl, the running backs been involved. 2022, they were even involved. Last year, they were involved, and we just went away from it. So just the consistency from the running back room in particular, highlighting that skill set from Brashad Smith. I like Pacheco. I love Kareem Hunt. I think Kareem Hunt should be starting, in my opinion, not because of his age or anything like that, but just because of his capabilities. He might be a little older, but he still got juice. He can still see the holes, and Pat trust him. He'll be my guy, and then I would kind of work the other guys in. But I would love to see something from Bashard Smith. I love what I seen from Noel Williams last week. I know he was a little handsy and got a few penalties here and there, but I think his physicality is just kind of that Mooney, of that Snead kind of build to where they're so physical at point, and we find a way to work them back and get them working in routine. I think that guy has a chance to really be effective for our defense coming in the future, and he's going to be the guy that we're going to have to rely on because honestly, I don't want to see Joshua Williams on third downs anymore. I'm tired of seeing that story. I don't want to see Shamari Connor in the slot anymore. He's not a slot corner. He can't play slot corner in the NFL. He's had a few good plays here and there, but I think, we can find a more consistent presence and let him go outside and give our safety room some help because we just lost Deion Bush. And I don't see us signing anybody else. So I would say Noah Williams, one, is a guy that I'm looking for to play a little better. And then obviously I like Brashad Smith. I'm a Brashad Smith guy. I already know what Jeffrey Bosser was going to do when he got into the defense. I think he's a steal coming out of Oregon in that fifth round. I really believe in what he can do and what he can provide for our defense. And then also, last but certainly not least, Joshua Simmons. He has a chance to really transform our season and really be a dude. So hopefully this offensive line and Kingsley and those guys, start figuring it out, or we start figuring out that left guard spot for sure. And hopefully Simmons can shine. And I think you'll see a different Chiefs team coming into the season.
I'll agree with the Smith thing. And if you look at the last two Super Bowls, that's one thing that really stood out. When you've got a D line that plays as aggressive as Philadelphia does and gets penetration quick and deep into the backfield, it leaves a big open space between the D line and the linebackers. And the year before, we had McKinnon, and he took advantage of that. He had that 30-yard touchdown off the screenplay, and he pretty much gutted them and changed the way they had to defend us. And we missed that last season. And Bashard Smith can kind of do that. If he can get just past the D line, no linebacker is going to tackle him when he's got 10 yards of space to make a miss. And we really, really, really lacked the passing game last year. And I think that's what Smith can kind of bring to this team, even if it's a third down role. And if he could just work on his blocking ability and kind of be a little bit more adequate with it, kind of give you what McKinnon did in that, to where you can bring him out every third down, it changes the way a team has to play you. They can't play as aggressive because they know that if they get too far downhill and there's that 15-yard gap between them and the linebackers, Mahomes is just going to dump it off and he's going to make a linebacker miss for a 20-yard gain.
Yeah, that's why I'm hopeful that they play him a little bit more consistently on Friday. He's one of the people that I hope gets more consistent snaps, so we kind of see what that may look like with him behind the starting offensive line, behind some of these other guys who are going to be playing the majority of the snaps. That's basically mostly what I'm hoping for this week is, will Andy commit to playing starters for an extended length so we can kind of have a little bit of a snapshot of what this is going to look like with some of these new pieces. But I think ultimately it's going to be about patience. I think at the end of the day, everything is going to work itself out. We're going to know pretty much who's going to be on this roster by the end of the weekend, barring a couple of surprise trades. There is cap space available. We could bring people on if the need arises. But I think most of this roster is set, and now it's about trying to see who is where in the pecking order, and are there still big changes that need to be made. So I think we'll see ultimately on Friday what this offense and defense are going to look like, and they should put a decent product out on the field, regardless if it looks vanilla or not.
And not so much just the starters. I want to see some of these rotational players rotate in with the starters. Like I want to see Thornton maybe get some reps with Mahomes. I really wish Royals was playing. I'd like to see Royals get some reps with Mahomes. Maybe some of the third string tight end. Maybe Wiley or that the one that you mentioned earlier, get some rest with Mahomes just to see what we have as depth pieces, because it's really hard to see what you have at depth when your second and third stringers aren't playing with the starters or somebody with the caliber of Mahomes, or they're not playing behind our starting O-line. I'd like to see, like, Thornton, what kind of role he can take on to see what he could do maybe while Rice is suspended. Kind of what I want to see with Royals, but I want to see Thornton maybe get a series or two in with Mahomes also, because he looked the part in camp. But besides the one drop that he tipped up to it for an interception to Cook, I mean, he looked the part of a wide receiver 3.
Same with Robert Tonyan. I want to see what Robert Tonyan looks like with Mahomes, because he's looked great catching passes from Gardner Minshew. But let's see what I hope that we see a little bit of that 13 personnel. I hope we are able to see a couple of these looks that we know we're going to see in the regular season with some of these guys. So please, Andy, please give the starters some extended run this game, so that way we can kind of get a little bit more evaluation out of these guys. But I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to discuss for this. Trizzy, is there anyone on the bubble before we get? Is there anyone on the bubble or any player on that really, really needs to show something this week, or you think they may not be on the roster after Friday?
Joshua Williams.
Yeah, I think Joshua Williams. He is currently, again, my 53rd man on the 53-man roster currently, and the only reason he is because a couple of spots have opened up with Sky Moore getting traded and FAU being lost for the season.
Yeah.
So I think he really needs to have a strong showing, or he's probably not making this roster. But yeah. I think he'll definitely get a good opportunity, because this is it. This is the last time we're going to see any of these guys before week 1 in Brazil, and cut down day is officially in 11 days. I believe it is Sunday at 4 o'clock. I think is not the 24th, but the 31st at 4 o'clock, I believe, is the cut down day. So there's not a whole lot of time left for some of these guys. So hopefully on Friday, they will get a chance to prove one more time why they belong on this roster. So that's going to go ahead and do it for us, guys. We appreciate you tuning in from wherever you're listening to your podcast on X and on YouTube. We will be back next week where we'll discuss everything that's happened from this upcoming preseason game and any cuts and finally making it down to that 53-man roster. So until then, guys, have a great rest of your evening. And as always, go Chiefs.
Oh, Chiefs.